Hi, everyone. Welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. 1986, what a year. In Toronto, a TTC ride was 45 cents for kids and $1 for adults. Over at Honest Ed's, you could get a pair of pantyhose for 77 cents. And the population of Ontario was about 9 million people. Now, let's see what the hot topics were for the province at that time.
Oral questions. The member for Sudbury. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, a question to the Minister of Housing. It's been reported, Minister, that Clarkson and Gordon has recommended a buyer for a chunk of the 11,000 apartment units that were flipped in 1982. It's also been reported that the Trevor Eaton Consortium that offered to build 1.25 units that were converted into condominiums, that their offer has been rejected. Will the minister tell this House, since he's a person that has often touted the need for more supply and how he's doing everything possible to get it, will he tell us why that offer was rejected and what he's going to do about it?
Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thought the honourable member know that I cannot tell you why the offer was rejected. As you know, that right now the matter is in the hands of the court to decide the final buyers of this 11,000 Cadillac Fairview units that were being sold on the market. I cannot give you a reason why they were not rejected.
Supplementary.
Will the minister tell this House, since you and your staff are obviously interested in supply and are trying to do everything possible to keep a close eye on it, what the likely capital expenditures are going to be on those units? And could you also tell the House to what extent those capital expenditures will be on those units, and how that is going to affect the tenants under the new provisions of Bill 51?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thought that the honourable member had a proper grip of what is going on in regards to these units that are being bought. I cannot tell you that these respective buyers, what is the capital expenditures on them. I don't know their forecast and what they intend to do with these buildings. However, I can tell the member, though, that we have in place, Mr. Speaker, a protection that a ceiling of 5% of the cost that will not be passed on, the maximum of 5% that cannot be passed on to tenants in case of the financial transaction agreement that has been taking place. I cannot tell you what the capital expenditures will be. If you will just listen, maybe you'll learn something, my honourable member may learn something from this. I cannot tell you what the prospective buyers will do, but as I said to you, I can tell you that the maximum amount of money that can be passed on to tenants is 5%.
Supplementary, the member for St. George.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the Minister, in view of the Premier's commitment to review the final decisions of the court on buyers, and in view of the preliminary turndown of the offer to provide 1.25 units of rental for every possible conversion to condominium of any of those units, what steps will the Minister take to ensure that if there is any conversion of those units to ownership, there will be a minimum of 1 1/4 rental units built for every unit converted?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knows that that when Bill 11 came into place, it was to protect the condominium, those rental units to be converted into condominium. We can assure you that those will not be converted to condominium. That's the first part of your question, I gathered. And you're alluring to the Trevethan proposal. As you know, that was rejected, and he can take that into the courts for an appeal in that respect.
New question. New question. Order. Order. New question, the member for Nipissing.
Speaker, I have a question for the Solicitor General. Allegations made at the trial of alleged members of the outlaw motorcycle gang raise concerns about the scope and influence of organized crime in Ontario. Would the minister tell us today what his government has done to deal with what is obviously a growing problem in this province?
Solicitor General.
55 minutes, Ken.
That's right.
There's some notes right there in that card in front of you. Once again, I'll remind all members that interjections are out of order and you're just wasting other members' time. Minister?
Question time does not provide us the opportunity to give a full lecture on the extent to what our people are doing with regard to the potential of organized crime in this province. We're aware that there are certain areas of it, concern expressed by police officials, and we certainly do have steps in hand to look after the problem, and we feel that it is not to the extent deemed serious as you might be led to believe by members of the opposition.
Supplementary?
You're saying it's not a problem, it's not on the increase, and you're doing things in the normal course of events. You'll no doubt be familiar with the Criminal Intelligence Service of Canada report, which has pointed to the triads, bikers, and the mafia as being the major players in organized crime in Canada. The minister will be familiar with reports that this city is home to at least 4 of the 11 triads in Canada, that they viciously exploit the Oriental immigrant community in this city, that rival Ontario bike gangs are competing for control of the illegal drug trade, that one bike gang is believed to control young prostitutes on the East Track in Toronto. Organized crime activity is on the increase in this province. What have you done to support the police and the local forces in their efforts to control this menace?
Minister?
Can you give us one thing?
Minister?
Yes or no?
And power in order to have a team that has reviewed very carefully the extent to which there has been any infiltration into these particular areas we referred to. And if you'd care to see some more of the work that we've done, I'd be more than happy to have you meet and see it.
Final supplementary?
Will knows that his own treasurer said this more coordination and whatnot is not the answer, that in fact you need a special group of advisors to deal with it. You'll know that that is his own treasurer's position on the matter. Has you called for a commission of inquiry into organized crime in Ontario? And when is this inquiry going to start?
Minister?
I've not called for such an inquiry. This government does not deal with consistent appointments of royal commissions. We have our people within our own staff who are capable of reviewing it, and that is exactly what they are doing, and on top of it at all times.
New question. New question, the member for York South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the Minister of Health, I have a question for the Premier. I'd like to ask the Premier, given the uncertainty of his answers over the last few days with respect to extra billing, I'd like to bring yet another case to the attention of the Premier. A letter from the LIFE program at the Toronto East General Hospital, which the Premier will be aware is a special fertility program, which has at the bottom of it the names of 5 medical doctors. The letter is dated the end of September 26, 1986. It says, "Dear LIFE patient, effective Wednesday, October 1st, 1986, there will be an administrative fee of $500 charged for each treatment. This will be payable on your arrival at the LIFE program office when you arrive for treatment on day 5. If you have any questions regarding this administrative fee, please contact your LIFE program doctor. Yours sincerely, LIFE program doctors." I wonder if the Premier can tell us what does he intend to do about this utterly unacceptable fee being charged to individual patients in the province of Ontario. Let's ban extra billing.
The honourable member bringing these examples to my attention and to the attention of the ministry. As the minister told you yesterday, and I believe the day before, he is chatting in the very near future with the president of the OMA. He is looking at these individual situations, and I'm sure when he has a full handle on all of the facts as raised by you and others that have come to his attention, then he'll be in a position to give you a very a clear response to that.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, those of us with memories, or quite apart from the memories of earlier question periods, will recall that the Premier on April the 26th, 1983, this is before other events took place, had this to say about extra billing. He said, "We believe there should be universal access to opted-in services, and there are real administrative problems, particularly in some of the specialties, anesthetists, obstetrics in certain areas. But I see it as a safety valve at this point in the system that lets some steam out of the system in this uneasy peace that's been reached between the doctors and the government, i.e. the taxpayers." I'd like to ask the Premier, does he not realize that what we are seeing, again, just as we saw prior to your conversion on extra billing and the passage of Bill 94, is precisely the same set of problems? Indeed, in some respects, the same set of specialists. Only it's a different technique that's being used, with the same result and the same burden being placed on the individual patient. You converted once, and you were a born-again opponent of extra billing. When can we...
Order. You've already asked the question. Premier?
I think I answered the question as well as I possibly could just a moment ago. At the moment, the individual examples are being looked at, whether there's any attempt to circumvent the current law, and how widespread the practice is. And I appreciate you bringing these matters forward, and obviously each one of them needs to be investigated and the facts and the true facts determined in that particular regard. As you know, there's other discussions going on with the OMA with respect to the fee schedule. As I think everyone acknowledges, there may be some adjustments that have to be made in that particular regard, and the minister is working on those questions at the present time. But I would appreciate your bringing these matters forward, but I counsel you not to just overreact and call for a new piece of legislation until there's a very clear view of how widespread the problem is.
Final supplementary.
Speaker, talk about time warp. In this very same paragraph of your response on April the 26th, 1983, you said, if it became excessive, if there was not, I think there are individual cases of abuse, but we have to be careful that we don't try to redesign the system entirely that will put so many more stresses on it just because of some of these cases. Your answer today is exactly the same as it was back in April 1983, only now we have a need for a second conversion, a need for a second response. I wonder if the Premier would be aware of the case of a Dr. Paul Bernstein, since I've been asked to name names in the legislature by your own minister. I have no choice but to do so. A doctor of obstetrics and gynecology at the Mount Sinai Hospital, whose letter to his patients begins, "The recent legislation enacted by the Ontario government, Bill 94, has made necessary a change in the billing mechanisms in my practice." He is charging his patients an amount which they are bills which they are receiving after, in some cases, the birth of their child, for a standard fee of $250. I wonder, what does the Premier intend to do about a practice which is not simply confined to a few cases?
Premier.
If you want us to pile them higher and deeper every day in this legislature, we'll do so until you're prepared to act to end extra billing.
And I suspect my honourable friend is going to do that, and you're very welcome to bring forward these cases in this House or through any other mechanism you choose. I think that we described to you what is the action the government is taking at the moment. We are assessing the situation, and we will respond appropriately at the appropriate time.
New question, the member for Sudbury East.
I have a question of the Premier in the absence of the guardian of the swamp regarding the McMaster University cover-up of the health effects of Domtar workers exposed to coal tar pitch volatiles. The Premier should be aware that under pressure from the company, the first report done by Drs. Chong and Haynes was rewritten to show that fewer workers were suffering from coal tar exposure with the full knowledge of the Minister of Labour. Why did the Minister of Labour support the second Domtar study, which was done by Dr. David Muir of the McMaster Occupational Health Program, which found only 15 workers were sick from coal tar exposure when the original McMaster study found 45 of the 74 workers were indeed sick?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I have no idea. But I will speak to the Guardian upon his return tomorrow, and I will ask him to respond to your question.
Supplementary?
I want a supplementary because this problem is serious. Is the Premier aware that although Dr. Muir indicated to the Toronto Star yesterday that the two examining physicians I named, Drs. Chong and Haynes, approved the revised report, this is not true. The two physicians refused to sign this second report, which was done without examining any of the patients. Muir didn't look at a patient. Will the Premier order the Minister of Labour to clean up Domtar on the basis of the first report?
Premier, I will certainly take your advice to heart. I will discuss it with the Minister of Labour. I'm sorry I'm not familiar with the details that you raised in the House, and I will discuss it with the Minister and hopefully have a response very quickly for you. If there's any other facts, I'd be happy if you share them with me.
Final supplementary.
Since the funding has gone to McMaster University from the province, and its conduct in this case is reprehensible, is the Premier prepared to allocate funds now to establish worker control clinics around this province so that workers can hire doctors to examine them so we have no more cover-ups like Domtar, de Havilland, American Can, and the list goes on? Will you provide the funding to establish those worker control clinics?
Premier, appreciate your suggestion. I'm not in a position to give you a definitive answer to that question today, but I will discuss it with the Minister and hopefully have a response for you tomorrow on the constructive suggestions that you have.
New question. The member for Mississauga East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Transportation and Communications. No doubt the Minister is aware of the allegation that the Outlaws motorcycle gang paid an employee of his ministry to check out probationary club members and thereby undermine undercover police work and put undercover police officers at considerable risk. Would the Minister tell us what action he has taken to substantiate these allegations and to identify the employee of his ministry who was allegedly involved in these activities?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, due to other commitments, in fact, the Cabinet was meeting prior to the House. I became aware of this issue in the press about 10 minutes of 2. I've asked my staff to investigate it as thoroughly as possible, to report to me if the allegations as outlined in the press are in fact accurate. It's a serious matter. We're certainly looking into it. I hope that I can have a more complete answer at another time, later time.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Will the Minister tell this House that if the allegations are proven to be factual, could he advise us of what disciplinary action would be taken if he's identified?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I think it would be unfair to speculate to the employee in question at this time. It's a hypothetical question. We don't know whether the allegations are true or not.
New question. The member for Sudbury East.
Again to the Premier about the swamp. The Premier might be aware that my colleague from Hamilton East and I raised the matter of Domtar with the Minister of Labour in August of '85. We received a response in October which stated in part, on the basis then I would be pleased to provide you with a summary of the survey results and the action which my officials are taking in light of the findings once the relevant discussion has been concluded. The Premier might also like to know that a Mr. Verrill, Brian Verrill, manager of the McMaster Occupational Health Clinic, in a letter in September of '85 said, "In the meantime, our summary report of the health status of the original report stands as is." Since the Minister promised me this survey, he then supplied me with a copy. Unfortunately, page 12 with the summary, I did not receive. I got a gobbledygook copy.
Question,
with page
please.
12 ignored. With a lot of gobbledygook which does not document the number of workers ill. Why was a doctored report provided to me, and why have I not received to this time a report on the findings by that particular study?
Premier Speaker, I apologize to the honourable member, but I have no idea. But the suggestions you're making in the House today, I will discuss with the minister. When you make suggestions in this House or allegations, I can assure you you'll be knowledgeable on the questions, and we take those things seriously. And I will follow up all the questions that you raised today.
Supplementary.
Supplementary. Since pressure has been exerted on Dr. Chong and Dr. Haynes by Dr. McCalla, the Vice President of McMaster, and by Dr. Muir, the Program Director, both of who work in an advisory capacity to the Minister of Labour, can the Minister tell, and since I've had to raise this matter in estimates about the pressure being exerted, and now Dr. Chong has been moved sideways out of the occupational branch at McMaster, and since Dr. Haynes has been told if you want your job, you can't test the patients in the worker clinic in Hamilton run by the workers themselves, will the Premier order a full investigation into the conduct of McMaster University in this matter, and at the same time an investigation as to why the Ministry of Labour allowed the second report to be written to cover up the serious effects on the workers in that plant?
Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to try to get to the bottom of the facts as you present in this House. I will have to determine a little later, I guess, what kind of action it takes if we determine it takes further action than that. But we'll get a handle on this, share the information with you, and make a determination after those facts are gathered.
Bill. New question? The member for Wentworth.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question of the Premier. Mr. Premier, in the past few weeks, there's been growing concern in the Hamilton-Wentworth area that your government intends to overturn the decision of the Consolidated Hearing Board which approved the construction of the Red Hill Creek Expressway. These concerns arise from the fact that it has now been a full year since the board ruled in favor of the project. Can you tell us why this matter has been before your cabinet for a year with no answer, and can you tell us when we can expect a decision?
Premier.
Speaker, one of the reasons is we've had so many messes we've had to clean up that you guys left behind that we're a little backlogged in some of these matters, and that's the answer to the question. Mr. Speaker, we are, that matter is before the Legislative Committee of the Cabinet at the present time. There are discussions ongoing. There's a number of complications, as you know, and we expect to be able to tell you the results of those deliberations in the not-too-distant future.
Supplementary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Premier, really, this issue has been studied for over 10 years. You speak of complications. I think the evidence was very clear before the Consolidated Hearings Board, and if one had the opportunity to look at that, if your legislation committee has looked at that, they will see that the complications are very easily resolved there. The board listened to presentations for several months, and they had a great amount of evidence there. It's been studied to death. Can you tell us what information you can possibly be missing after so much study, debate, and consultation? Or are you deliberately ignoring a very important part of the province of Ontario, the Hamilton area?
Premier?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I never cease to be so amazed when I go to Hamilton and when the senior officials tell us of how happy they are with the attention this government does pay to the Hamilton area,
and
because it's a very high priority area for this government. You were saying perhaps that this thing has been discussed for 10 years? Well, that's interesting to know that you're 90% of the problem. Perhaps you'd stand up and explain why you held this thing up for 9 years, and you'll tell your colleagues. So I tell my friend opposite that we are looking at the matter at the present time. I hope to have a decision in the not-too-distant future. There are a number of things that have to be tied together, but I'd be very interested in knowing your opinion on this entire matter. Where do you stand on the matter?
New question, the member for Port Arthur.
Mr. Speaker, I have a new question for the Minister of Industry and Trade. On Monday, you told the House that Ontario, quote, reluctantly went along with the federal government concessions on softwood lumber, even though you indicated the federal government's position was, quote, not a good one. Yesterday, you are reported as saying, quote, we should deal with the issue by fighting it straight on and by not giving in any way, end of quote. Don't you think it's a little late? Don't you think you and your government have already sold out the security of jobs in Northern Ontario? Don't you think it's time that you resigned?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will reiterate what I said yesterday, and that is I think that the rest have sort of come around to the way we expressed ourselves in the first time, that they shouldn't have supported an offer. We intend to fight this, and we intend to win it.
Supplementary, the member for Algoma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the minister explain how his statement just now, that the rest, I suppose he means the other governments in this country, have come around to the position sort of expressed by this government, is going to help us in the appeal that has to be made in the United States? Doesn't he agree that by suggesting a 10% increase in stumpage, that this country and this province have given the American industry the ammunition they need to ensure that this decision is confirmed, if not actually increased by the end of the appeal period? If that is not
Minister,
the case, how can he say that he is protecting the interests of Ontario?
We had meetings on Monday evening, and we also met yesterday afternoon into the evening. And the people that were there that gave us the results of the Commerce Disclosure Conference that was held Monday feel that we have an excellent chance of winning that case, and we intend to fight it and to win it.
New question. The member for York Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Community and Social Services. For a year and a half now, the insurance crisis has become more and more severe in our province. More and more agencies of Community and Social Services Ministry are being adversely affected because they are not able to obtain sufficient liability insurance. What are you doing? What are you doing to help solve this crisis on the agencies supported by your ministry?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we had indicated to all of our agencies that we're having difficulties, that the Ontario Liability Insurance Group that works through my colleague, the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relationships, was prepared to help them. Up to this point, every single agency, with one exception that we're still working on, that's the Blue Hills one in Aurora, have had their insurance problems settled by that particular operation. So it would seem that it is working successfully. That is not to suggest that there aren't still more problems out there that are still going to have to be channeled through. And we're looking at a whole range of things. But we've clearly said to them, there is a mechanism in place. It's worked in every single case, with the one that's still ongoing, and we're hopeful of getting that one settled too.
Supplementary.
Well, I compliment the Minister for being aware of the Blue Hills Academy situation. Mr. Speaker, the problem is severe, where they had $5 million of child molestation insurance. They now can only get $250,000 of child molestation insurance, where before they had $5 million of insurance for athletic injury. They can now only get $1 million liability insurance, where before they had $5 million for general liability, they can now only get $1 million. They had 16 members of the board. Oh, come on. They had 16 members of the board, 10 have resigned. Programs are being cut back. This problem has existed since July 1st. What specifically are you doing to solve the problem at Blue Hills Academy? Can you take over the insurance and begin to handle the problem so we don't have deterioration of services for our emotionally disturbed children?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member correctly recounts the problem that's there. There's no disagreement between us on that. The problem that, quite frankly, that we have with the insurance industry is that the increases that they are asking for refer to situations which have never created a problem before. And when we talk to them, they simply say that we are anticipating a problem. Now, it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to deal with an industry that's basing. It's pretty difficult to deal with the industry when they're basing their projections on an anticipation that we can't grapple with. But the fact still remains that there are 6 members of the board left, that we are working with them, that we have even gone down into the United States to try to find insurance, particularly the reinsurance, if necessary. and we will resolve this problem. We have indicated to the 6 members that are still left that we will not see them left in any particular difficulty. They are aware of that fact, and we are working with them. And to the best of my knowledge, the programs are ongoing.
New question, the member for Lakeshore.
Question for the Minister of the Environment about tritium. In 1977, the previous government exempted the Darlington nuclear power development from an environmental assessment. At that time, a plant for the removal of tritium was never mentioned and therefore is not part of the exemption order. The Minister has now decided that the original exemption order does not restrict the installation of the $120 million tritium removal facility. My question for the Minister is this. Does he mean by this ruling that once an exemption order has been given for a site, any new projects or additions are not subject to any further review?
Minister?
If you're looking for an answer to further projects down the line, which I think I detect you are, but why didn't the leader of the third party ask the question if he's going to re-ask it now? The member has asked an excellent question, in my view, and I interpret it as being, if there were a future facility to be constructed in the province of Ontario, would the same rules apply? And I can assure the member that if there were to be another installation to be constructed, and I don't know of any plans on the Minister of Energy's part or Hydro's part to construct one, we certainly would not be in a position to have the same rules that applied in the past applied to that particular facility.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister seems to ignore the very dangerous precedent that his ruling has set. Is he implying that we could perhaps have a nuclear waste disposal facility at Darlington because of the ruling he's made? What I'd like to know from him is, will he call a public hearing into 2 crucial elements of this project for tritium removal, which must be publicly discussed? Will he examine the effects of tritium export on nuclear weapons manufacturing? And will he allow the public some input into the question of the transportation of tritium from other nuclear plants across the province to Darlington?
Hear, hear.
Does the Minister not agree that he must provide the opportunity for some public scrutiny of these 2 very important questions?
Minister.
Well, in regard to its use for nuclear purposes in terms of nuclear weapons, I can indicate that our government and the Minister has indicated on many occasions that naturally we would be opposed to the use of that material for the construction of nuclear weapons, and I think we're on record as that. In regard to the transportation, I think the member does have an area which would fall within certainly the realm of the Ministry of the Environment, and I would certainly be prepared to look very carefully at that particular suggestion which has come from it's difficult, Mr. Speaker, to answer these questions when the member for Port Arthur is interrupting.
If the minister addressed the response through the chair, he might not hear the interjections either.
Consider myself suitably reprimanded by the Speaker, and appropriately so. No, the member has, I think, a serious question which Energy Pro, for instance, has brought to my attention. And in terms of the transportation, we are exploring that possibility now. As to the first one, I think that's very difficult in terms of my ministry having a specific responsibility and role over whether or not it would be used in nuclear weapons. I know our government as a whole, the Premier, Minister of Energy, and I think the government as a whole has said that we would be totally opposed to the use of the tritium in the construction of nuclear weapons.
New question? The member for Sudbury.
Speaker, a question to the Minister of Community and Social Services.
Right.
Minister, the Francophone community in Sudbury and in northeastern Ontario are fed up and incensed with the lack of adequate mental health services for children in the Francophone community. Now, you know, Minister, that Franco Nord has had a submission on your desk now for some months to take over the services from the Sudbury Algoma Hospital. When are you going to do something about this submission?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the request is in, that's true. But at the same time, in all fairness to Sudbury Algoma, we indicated to them that we would review and audit the program that they're offering to see whether or not a transfer, and we're not necessarily opposed to the transfer. What we want to be sure of is that the service is going to be provided properly. So we are now in the process of doing a review and an audit of the Sudbury Algoma program, and when we have that information back, we will compare that with what Franco Nord wants to do. And quite frankly, if Franco Nord's submission is a preferable one and they're within reasonable price ranges, we will consider that option.
Supplementary?
Well, Minister, you sound as if you're a very reasonable person in talking about this particular subject. But this problem has existed in Sudbury now for over a year. That has been really a matter of concern to the Francophone community. As well, that
The member for Sudbury East said he was very sorry. The member for Sudbury.
As well, the submission has been on your desk now for over 6 months. The director of the program at the Sudbury Algoma Hospital resigned in July, saying that he was very worried about the way things were going for the children. It was impossible to stay on. They've had employees in the hospital that have resigned as well due to that programming. 3 board members at the Sudbury Algoma Hospital, Francophone board members, have resigned over this issue. The advisory group, the Francophone advisory group, they resigned as well. When are you going to act? You promised, your government promised that you were going to do something for Francophones in northeastern Ontario. When are you going to get busy?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I would think that the honourable member would appreciate that in all fairness and with a sense of justice, that we would weigh the Franco Nord proposal against a reasonable audit and review of what's ongoing now. Is the honourable member suggesting that I simply accept somebody else's proposal without giving the people who are presently offering the program a fair chance to demonstrate what they're doing and the effectiveness of what they're doing? I don't think that's fair or just, and quite frankly, I think you would rightfully criticize me if I did that. Now, the second point to keep in mind is that the member, I'm sure, is reasonably aware, given the passage, the proclamation last November of the Child and Family Services Act, which has a specific reference to providing Francophone services all across the province, that we are working with Francophone communities all across the province with different kinds of settings and different kinds of needs to set up a number of models as to what's the most appropriate way to do that. And I just recently met with the council, explained some of these to them. They in turn explained some to me, and they agree with us that this is the appropriate way to go. The one thing that they did not agree with is that we should automatically accept a proposal coming from someone else without looking at the alternatives. I think that's the just and the fair way to do it.
New question. The member for Scarborough West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too have a question for the Minister of Community and Social Services. The Minister was no doubt no less surprised than me about the National Council on Welfare's statement today that there are more poor today in Canada than there were in 1980. That the only group that really seems to have benefited on social assistance has been the senior citizens. That the disabled markedly have had no major help in getting out of the quagmire of poverty. So much so that in Ontario today, a senior will live on no less than $727 a month, whereas a disabled person can live on as little as $329 a month. 55% of that amount. When do you plan to implement the policies promised by the Premier when he was in opposition and by the then critic, Mr. Rye, that you were going to get rid of this inequity and have the same rates for seniors and for disabled in the province of Ontario?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the member will be aware of the fact that the 1986 rate package is the most generous that has been given in this province in many a year. You will recall that the disabled are included in that package, both the additional $81 million that we gave in January and the additional $25 million that was given in September the 1st of this year. Now, I fully recognize the discrepancy, and that's included in our proposals for the next rate package, but at least accept the fact that a considerable amount was done in this 1986 year, and some more will be done in 87, and more will be done in 1988. We have met with the various advocacy groups representing the disabled, and we have discussed with them this phased-in program. It's not going to be done in 1 year. The other thing that the member would be aware of is that we have definitely improved the attendant care program that assists the disabled to stay in their own home or to stay in supported independent living apartment units. So I think we have done something. Everything that's needed? Certainly not.
Supplementary.
I remind the Minister of the figure. $329 a month is the minimum that we would pay somebody who is disabled in the province of Ontario. Even if we gave them the maximum, that person would still receive $150 a month less than the minimum that we give a senior citizen. Where do you stand on the principle that there should be equity? And how quickly are you going to bring us to equity?
Minister.
If by equitable, the member means that there are two citizens in our province that have similar needs and receiving dissimilar resources, then I agree with you. That should be made more equitable. And we will continue to move in that direction in the way in which I just described to the honourable member.
Order. Order. No, it's okay. The member for Mississauga South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Treasurer, who, just as he's leaving, he has announced that he does not intend to proceed with Bill 38 at this time, perhaps because he's realizing that the cultural and recreational programs should not be forced to enter into the competition for lottery funds with other established social programs. However, I want to suggest to the Minister that his position is simply not convincing and doesn't go far enough, especially not for the thousands of cultural and recreational groups across this province who fear that the Minister is only postponing his massive revenue grab until the political climate is more favorable. I would ask the Minister to alleviate this concern and demonstrate his commitment to these many thousands of important organizations by withdrawing Bill 38 altogether and by assuring this House that Section 9 of the Lottery Corporation Act will be upheld by his government.
Treasurer.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honourable member is aware that in the 2 years during which, or the two budget periods during which we've had the responsibility to allocate funds, that in both instances we have allocated substantially more dollars than those which came into the Treasury from the allocated lottery money. As a matter of fact, I just want to answer specifically. In the first year, the revenue was $79 million. We allocated $111 million. This year, we expect $85 million in revenue, and we have allocated $95 million. If I were to follow your direction and use only the funds that come in from Wintario and Lotterio, I would have to reduce the money, and I'm sure the honourable member doesn't want that to occur. Any surplus that has occurred comes from those bad old Tory years when the government of the day did not allocate the money required by law. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, if you'll permit me, going back to 1981, the money that came in from the two lotteries was $137 million. The Tory government allocated only $74 million. In 1982, $117 million came in. The Tories allocated only $89. In 83-84, there was $117 million again. They allocated only $96. The only time, Mr. Speaker, when all of the money was allocated was in 1985, when the revenue was 96.
Order. Supplementary. Member for Simcoe Centre.
Mr. Speaker, we in this side of the House, by way of supplementary, have listened to Liberal mathematics for the last 3 or 4 days while we are trying to get one simple answer out of you. Will you withdraw Bill 38 or not? That's all we want to know.
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, the bill really isn't necessary, since all I have to do is follow the example of the PC government previously. Although the dollars were allocated, they never spent them. Any surplus that exists is that which is left over from those bad old days. I do not intend to withdraw the bill.
On the other hand, I don't intend to call it either. You old snake.
Order. Order. I'm sure the constituents of Bellwoods would like all other members to allow the member for Bellwoods to place his question. The member for Bellwoods.
I too have a question for the Treasurer, who will know that the Hydro Workers Union are being forced to go to court, I think today, in order to try to prevent Ontario Hydro, which is a $340 million surplus, according to your actuaries, in their pension fund, in order to prevent them from escaping their $53 million annual service contribution obligation, in spite of the fact that the employees, of course, have contributed $37 million this year. I want to ask the Treasurer, firstly, are you aware that the Ontario Hydro workers who retired 10 years ago have suffered a 90% loss in the purchasing power of their pensions since they retired, and that those who retire as recently as 5 years ago have lost a third of the purchasing power of their pensions? And can you explain to me, once again, why you would not use the $343 million in the surplus account to provide inflation protection?
Treasurer.
The honourable member's question follows up a rather compelling speech that he made in the legislature yesterday afternoon, which I didn't have a chance to respond to at that time. I regret that. I think the honourable member also knows that the courts have responded quite rapidly in the appeal that the hydro workers have brought forward, and it may be, I'm informed by a usually reliable source, that these hearings are progressing either today or in the very near future. The other matter, of course, is the other matter. The other matter really has to be the same answer that I gave the honourable member before. That the statute is under consideration, and we intend to bring forward amendments in the near future. But presently, the Pension Commission, which is not always found to be correct in the courts, I understand, has ruled that Hydro does not have to make that contribution under those circumstances. Anyway, it is before the courts, and we await with a great deal of interest the decision in this important matter.
Supplementary.
By way of supplementary, it remains incomprehensible that you would continue to force workers to go to court to protect their own deferred wages, even after the verdict of the Supreme Court on the Conrad Black affair, when your regulatory agency, the Pension Commission of Ontario, was described by the court in such unusual judicial language as misleading, stonewalling, blissful ignorance, and undoubtedly negligent. And yet still another court case, another group of workers being ripped off this time by a Crown agency. How much longer are the workers of this province and we ourselves to endure this kind of stupidity?
Treasurer.
Well, under the contempt laws of the province, as we understand them, I'm not going to comment in any way on the adjectives used by the court, other than to say that they were very clear in their rulings in that and another case. But I would say to the honourable member that you cannot compare this one in all particulars with the one that the court has previously ruled upon, that they are presently undertaking to hear the evidence, and we will have the benefit of their ruling in the near future. But I can assure you that we're not going to change the law without giving it careful consideration and bring it to the attention of the legislature for the debate and the disposition by this House, which is what we intend to do in the near future.
New question. The member for Sudbury.
Speaker, a question for the Minister of Energy. You know, it's clear from the recent events in Ontario with the proposal to have tritium transported on the highways of Ontario, a type of substance that can make people glow in the dark, it's quite obvious, Minister, that the time has come for you to see that Ontario Hydro comes out with a very comprehensive plan for the disposal and storage of nuclear waste. And that means a long-term plan. When are you going to act?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the honourable member realizes that there is an agreement between the Government of Canada and Ontario Hydro, and that there is an undertaking and research going on at Pinawan, Manitoba, for the long-term disposal of nuclear waste. It's felt at this point in time that the nuclear waste that is in the swimming pools at the various nuclear stations is quite safe, and the integrity of those systems is unquestionable. And I'd like to reassure the honourable member that when we go on this fall with an examination of the safety of Ontario Hydro, in all probability we'll take that into account.
Supplementary.
I just don't accept that answer at all. What we need in this province is a definite commitment from the minister that within 12 months you will bring out a plan for comprehensive storage and long-term disposal of radioactive waste. That's number one. And that should be brought before an informed public, a group of people who can judge it as such. At the present time, we have no guarantees at all. And when you start talking about swimming pools, you know, the Energy Control Board of Canada could not give us an answer in the Energy Committee that if those pools were to lose water, that anybody would be safe anywhere near them at all. So when are you going to act? We want action now.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I'm certain that the honourable member would realize that Atomic Energy of Canada Limited and the Atomic Energy Control Board is a major player in the safety of the atomic process, particularly in Ontario, where we've had a major undertaking in this particular field. The fact of the matter is that that is underway, that there is a program, there is going to be safe disposal of waste, and the reason that it's taking some time is we're taking more care than other jurisdictions as to how to dispose of nuclear waste, and I'm pretty proud of what goes on in Canada as opposed to other jurisdictions.
New question? The member for Essex North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture and Food. I'm sure that the Minister is aware that Ontario ranks well below the Canadian average for assistance expenditures per farm and per dollar of agricultural output. And given the financial crisis in the farm community of the day, will the Minister increase its overall financial assistance to agricultural producers through supplementary estimates this fall and in a new budget in the spring?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, that question really indicates the neglect that the previous administration gave to the agricultural industry. There's no question that the budgets of the previous Tory government, as far as agriculture is concerned, declined over the years, and we are doing our best to try to compensate for that neglect. And within the 15 months that I've been minister, we have increased the budget by 39%. We will endeavor to implement new programs to assist our farmers. I think we've done a tremendous job. We have extended the offer program. We have sunk in another $150 million over and above the $50 million that we put into the program last year. There will be a substantial amount of money paid out of the income stabilization program this year, which is a provincial program. So I think that we're doing quite well, considering the kind of a thing that we inherited from those people over there.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we realize that the previous government didn't do a lot of things. We just want to be assured that you're not going to follow the same suit and protect the farmers in Ontario. I realize that the offer program has been expanded and somewhat improved. However, I have to question the Interministerial Task Force on Agricultural Finance as to their recommendation to phase out the program
by providing 70% of benefits for 87 and 40% of the benefits for 88. Will the minister assure this House today that he will not accept that recommendation and continue the offer program with full benefits?
Minister?
Well, the honourable member and I really do not know what the state of the agricultural industry will be 3 years from now. So it's really difficult to know whether there will still be a need for the offer program. We would rather put in place longer-term programs, and we are working on a national agricultural strategy whereby we can have some kind of stabilization right across this country rather than having provinces implement short-term measures, which has been a program of the previous administration all too long. You know, they apply Band-Aids. We want to implement long-term programs, so we're phasing out the offer, but in its place, we hope to have much longer-term programs so that the farmers will know exactly what is available for them so that they can plan their farming career not only this year, but 5 years down the road.
New question. New question, the member for Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It must be a quiet day in Brampton.
Right.
I have a question. I have a question for the Minister of Agriculture. It's a similar question to one I asked him 16 months ago, so it's a test. See whether I get the same answer. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Agriculture is this. Last week, the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations tabled legislation in this House that would allow for the sale of beer and wine in grocery stores. My question to the Minister is this. He knows of the ramifications of the GATT agreement. Does he understand that the obligations of the Ontario government under this agreement will be met if this proposed legislation is put in place?
Minister?
Well, I'm sure that the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations has looked into this matter, and I'm sure that we will not be contravening any GATT agreements with the program which we are proposing. But if indeed we are, and we are let known by GATT that we are, then we'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it.
You're working for the French wine growers? Way to go. Don't ever plan ahead.
Supplementary?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the minister guarantee that in crossing that bridge, he will not attract a single countervailing duty on an agricultural commodity in this province?
That's right.
Well, I'm not going to stand up and give you that kind of a guarantee. We don't feel that we're doing anything that will be countervailable, but we are going to work very hard in the best interests of the wine industry in this province, and I would like to think that we could get the federal government involved to the extent that we cut back on some of the cheaper imported wines that we bring into this country to give our own wine industry a chance.
New question. The member for Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Correctional Services about the difficulties he's having in establishing an open custody facility or youth community residence, as he calls it, for young offenders in the Sault Ste. Marie area. The minister's efforts through the local resident, Ray Dawson, have now been stopped twice, most recently on Monday night when City Council ruled that such a residence doesn't qualify as a group home under the city bylaws. What action is the minister now taking to ensure that this service and the jobs that come with it will in fact be established in Sault Ste. Marie?
Mr. Speaker, across the province we are taking action to provide these type of open custody facilities in a great many centres, and if we first of all make sure that they must conform, and we don't intend to try and locate them in any place where they don't conform with zoning bylaws, whether it be in the city of Ottawa where we're dealing with one this week, or whether it's Sault Ste. Marie, or whether it's Brockville, but we do conform and we consult with the people and we form community liaison committees, and when they eventually are formed, we've had great acceptance by the public, as witnessed by 5 new homes I've opened here in the city of Toronto this year.
Supplementary?
Well, I don't think his statements reflect what's happened in Sault Ste. Marie, where there's been tremendous rancor and disagreement about the two locations that have been proposed to date, and the lack of involvement from that minister and his ministry in explaining to the community the need for the facility and what the facility is designed to do has resulted in tremendous confusion about the facility in Sault Ste. Marie. Can the minister tell us what he's doing on that specific case and when we're going to see that facility come into Sault Ste. Marie?
Minister?
I cannot tell you exactly when that facility will be coming to Sault Ste. Marie, but it will be there with the support of the public at the time that we find an appropriate residence that is in accordance with the zoning regulations of the city, and one which the local organization that does seek out such a facility finds the appropriate location. That particular one, I am not fully aware of the Monday night situation of what may have happened there, but let me assure you that it'll be proceeded and that there will be a facility in Sault Ste. Marie in accordance with municipal regulations and our criteria for establishment of such homes.
Time for oral questions has expired.